I'm very excited about this festival altogether. The fact that vegan is such a huge word in the context of the whole thing, and very pronounced. Most things we go to these days, they're still sticking in the corner and hope that no one really sees you. But here we are, loud and bold. I've got the heading up there that says it's about compassion. And it's the underlying theme that runs through the whole idea of being vegan. It really is about thinking of self and thinking from self and outwards towards all others. So what is veganism? We at the Vegan Society have taken the same definition that is used by the UK Vegan Society. They originally, it was very similar to this, and it's just been changed and adjusted for clarity through the years. So if you can all read it, you can see what it says, but very importantly, what it in essence says is that we do not use animals in any way. We do not use them for food, for clothing, for entertainment. They are not ours to own. They are free beings. And in that same breath, we don't use what comes from them. Their milk, their eggs, their skins and their fur, or whatever it is that they have. And then the other thing I want to also say, which is going to run through it, is that it says, as far as is possible and practicable, all forms of exploitation, which means essentially as well that there's always an area where you sometimes might use something that is not going to be deemed as vegan. If your life is on the line, you will certainly not just allow yourself to pass away because you're not going to use medication and things along those lines. So it's where it's practical. In other words, not where it's convenient or inconvenient. That's two very, very different things. So what do we do as a vegan society? Here in South Africa, we've been going for a couple of years. We are a volunteer organization, which means that we have to work really hard. We don't have great resources as well. We use our time and our energy, and our main focus really is to educate and teach about veganism, to share the information, as much information as we can, as far and wide as possible. We obviously want people to understand it and then embrace it into their lives as far as they can. So we do outreach. We go and have stands, things like this in this kind of event. We also distribute resources. We do that digitally online with our website. Obviously now we're going to be doing more digital stuff with WhatsApp and whatever other way. Use medium like that, which is paperless. We also do product endorsement. Because you have a huge surge of products beginning to be developed in South Africa and across the world, there is a need to have support for the people who are doing that, and also support for the products, and to provide products that are 100% vegan for our members and for the people in the public. So we have a SAVS endorsement, and our endorsement is actually even stricter than the UK endorsement. They've got their own logo and endorsement system. They've got a trademark. And ours is even stricter, wherein what we have is we don't accept any company that has a mother company that is not also a vegan brand. So if the mother company that owns that company has a product that's dairy or is a meat manufacturer, and they've now suddenly got a vegan brand going, we don't endorse it, because all we're doing then is we're turning that economy back into the exploitative system. So it's pretty tough, because a lot of people get very excited and they come to us and they say, I've got this product, I've just started it in my garage and I'm going to get going. And we say, show it to us, let's have a look at it. And then it's like, I'm so sorry, but one of the products that you're using here is actually connected to animal testing, or it contains a byproduct of something else. But that's also great, because then they go back into the little labs at home or in their laboratories, and they find out, they go and source new products. So that in turn creates another whole industry that is aware of the need for non-animal products in the commercialized business. Then we also like to provide support. It's one thing. I mean, all over the internet, we see people speaking about veganism, and whether they're doing it in a loud way or a quiet way, they're all hoping that vegans are going to emerge from their audience that they're speaking to. But I found, being vegan for a very long time, that one of the hardest things for people is to stay vegan. You can get very excited in the beginning, and you're thrilled, and things are clicking into place. Then keeping it up is really tough. And I could spend a couple of hours talking to you about that, because I understand what that is like. But the biggest thing, and what we're going to be focusing from now onwards, especially after the very tough last 2 years that everybody's experienced, is keeping people vegan, supporting them in any way that we can with the resources that we have, whether it's having chapters throughout the country, which we have had before, where we have communities coming together and sharing different events. Oh, it's not working. Oh, there was. So you can see here some of the things we do. There's our outreach there with our poster. We had Philip Warren. Do you remember him? He's from Australia, and he does a great speech when he talks about how many animals are killed, etc., etc. Try and look him up on the internet. He came to speak in South Africa, and that's Andre from Durban. He's also he's one of the captains on Sea Shepherd, also in our vegan society. We have Braai Day every year. I have one on the South Coast this year. We have radios. We go on radio. We go on TV. And we have a lot of fun together, having picnics and bringing communities together. If you can go back again to what the definition of what veganism is, just remember what I spoke about there. So, and this, you're all reading what's behind me. And this is not to offend anybody. I also was vegetarian. At 14, I went vegetarian. I didn't even know why I actually did it. The only thing I could grasp onto was an article I found from some 1960s health book that my mother had. And it said you shouldn't be eating pork. So I said, okay, that's the only thing I can find that can tell me that I shouldn't be eating animals, because I feel like I shouldn't. So I onto that, and I became a vegetarian. Probably not a very good one, because I didn't really know what to eat. But vegetarianism has been around for centuries and centuries. People have had it as just a philosophical way of living. It has been a spiritual way. There are cultures that use vegetarianism throughout, and there's variations of that as well. So they may eat some things, like satsang, that they don't eat eggs. Sorry, trying to remember that one. And vegetarian is very well ingrained in our society. Everybody knows what it is. Even 30 years ago, you could go out and people would say, "Oh, that's fine, you're vegetarian. Here's something to eat," and you get steamed vegetables with loads of cheese on top. So it's well known. There's shops everywhere full of vegetarian things, and it's always been that way. So what we need to do then when we're vegetarian is start to realize that we can actually go a little bit further, because you are doing it essentially for, one, your health possibly, but also you're doing it because of the consciousness that you have for other beings. That is usually the most common way that people choose to be vegetarian. So if you're looking at the well-being of other people and other beings, you're going to have to start examining your food a little bit better. And in the vegetarian state, you're still participating in the violence and the exploitation that occurs with people and with the way that they're raising animals for food and for other reasons as well. So you're going to be having dairy. Dairy, for one, is an extremely tricky industry for me. As a feminist, I kind of get very attached to the idea of how it is so exploitative and how that same thing runs through so many other industries in the animal industry with hens and so forth. But female animals, female beings are continually put in a state of being pregnant, continually artificially inseminated to create more and more lives that just go back into the cycle, death, pregnancy, death, and so it goes. And all that time, they're simply confined in a space, in a sow crate, in a battery hen cage. It is not all right. The life of a cow can live to 25, 30 years. In these days, a dairy cow is finished by 6 years. They're just simply exhausted. They're forced to have babies on a continual cycle. So once they have the baby is removed. If you've ever been to the Berg or the Midlands and you work a bit in the morning and you hear the cows bellowing, it's not because of they're wanting their food, especially if it's in spring. It's because they're crying for their babies. So we start to see then that milk, which we've always considered to be this healthy, I've got a milk moustache, it makes me strong, it makes my bones strong, my teeth. My mum said I've got to have my milk every day, and if I have 2 glasses, I know I'm going to grow up great. We've got to start looking at where does that milk come from? Why am I actually consuming it? Why am I eating butter? Why am I eating cheese? Why have I got cheese on everything? Because that's basically what vegetarians do. I did that myself, and it was the last thing I gave up was cheese. Cheese actually is one of the most addictive foods. They say it's a bit like crack. But, and I can attest to that, because it was the most difficult thing for me to give up at all. I just spent months and months trying until one day at breakfast, I was eating my cheese again on toast. And I said, that's it. I'm not doing this anymore. 2 days later, my brain fog that I'd had for years and years completely disappeared. I could actually go and have a thought begin in my head, and I could actually finish that thought in one whole piece. And that did it for me. But it was a selfish reason. It was just for me. It wasn't really pushed enough, the harm that the animals were going through in order for me to have that cheese. And dairy as well, it has a growth hormone, and that is the same thing that makes us want and crave dairy. So that hormone in the milk is the thing that wants the calf, that drives the calf to grow so very, very quickly in its life, from being born to ready to go out into the field. And that's what we're eating, and we're humans and we're adults, and we're not going to be doing that. So why on earth are we drinking that substance that is made for calves to grow in a very, very fast state into a very large animal? That's a question we have to make as well. And the calves are taken away from their mothers. They are given hoops to go around their nose with sticks, and they're weaned if they stay with their mothers for long enough, and then they're removed. The mother kicks and gets rid of them in order for them to quickly wean and get moved on, whether it's for slaughter. Of course, because boy cows have no purpose. So they are thrown out of the system, of the dairy system, and they're either put into veal crates where they starve until 6 months. They become anemic. They're forced to be anemic. They're just in a small plastic cage by themselves. And then when they are old enough, 6 months, they are slaughtered for veal. In South Africa, they are sold on the side of the road as waste to anybody who wants to now have a calf for free and grow it into a bull or whatever it is, and they can slaughter later. And chicks as well from hens, we have a system where male chicks as well, there's no purpose to them if they're in an egg battery farm. They can't produce eggs. They're no good at all. So they scoop all the eggs together and they masticate, they just grind them up. Sorry to be graphic, but that's the reality of it. They're simply swept into a large machine and that's it. So, and then of course the female chicks, when they're sexed, they go fed up and then they get put back into that system and live their lives in a very small space. And I know we have free range. Free range is not much different. And in the bottom of the line at the end of the day, that animal is still producing eggs for a whole lot of people instead of for herself. Chickens actually, if they have eggs and they are free and they're not contained and owned by people, they actually eat their own eggs. They use them for nutrition. They eat the eggs and they eat the shells and they take that back into their bodies, and it's actually their egg. It's not anybody else's egg. She's not giving it to you. So you can see that vegetarian, you are still very much entrenched, because you also don't look, apart from what you're eating, you probably might still be riding horses, wearing leather and silk and wool. And all of those are also industries come from, or the leather. Often we think of leather as, oh, that's nice. It's healthy. Even I used to love leather. I used to think, even as a vegetarian, here's leather. It's a good natural product. Until I started really thinking, what the heck am I doing with an animal's skin on my body? I'm not eating them, but I'm wearing it. That's something kind of perverse. And I had to get rid of all of it. I gave it away. I couldn't, because of the animal, I didn't want to just throw it away. I had this attachment still that it at least lived in it. I mustn't treat it with respect. And so I gave my leather away. But again, the vegetarians, they're not drawing that line at that place of no use. Milk is also linked to osteoporosis as well as other things. And of course, when you're drinking milk, you're also drinking the hormones of the female cow. In her milk, just like our milk, there's a whole lot of nutrients and other elements that are made for her calf. You're now taking those in and they're becoming part of your system. Why are we doing that? Then lactose intolerance in South Africa is very common. 70% of adults suffer from some degree of lactose intolerance. So in our black population, more and more of our black population are realizing that they are actually allergic to dairy. Whatever the issues that they're having with their health, often can be sinuses or stomach issues, they're realizing that it's attributed to dairy. And unfortunately, plant milk is still very inaccessible to many people, and unfortunately it's not subsidized. It could easily be going into schools and helping children with nutrition, but unfortunately everything is still very dairy based, and so they're feeding all these difficult products with dairy in them to children and exacerbating their allergies. That's it for that. So then we all come to the other aspect, which is health and nutrition. I really enjoy that little quote by Dr. Neil Barnard. He's from Physicians for Medicine. So very important to understand this top sentence there. Well-planned vegan diets are supported as healthy for all people at all stages of life by the World Health Organization, the American Dietetic Association, and the British Dietetic Association. But please note, it says well-planned vegan diets. And that's part of education. And that's what we want to get across to people as well. But it's wonderful that more and more this is happening, that the medical systems are recognizing the tremendous positive benefits of having a vegan diet, that it's eliminating all animal products. So the positives that we have is half the rate of high blood pressure, half the risk of type 2 diabetes. In fact, type 2 diabetes is known to go into regression. Is that the right word? They've managed to get rid of it in certain people with type 2 diabetes. 15 to 20% lower risk of cancer, significantly lower cholesterol levels. We have a lot more carbohydrates in our diet, a lot more fiber. You probably have a lot more variety as well. Protein is always the thing that you get asked, where do you get your protein from? It's in everything to greater and larger degrees. So when you want to focus on protein, we look at all the legumes, the seitan, the quinoa, and the grains, and you'll have more than enough, more protein from all of that altogether. And the great thing we're finding now that the influence is what the influence athletes have. They've discovered that yes, they can build muscle with plants. You don't need to have meat. And it's the most marvelous thing, because you've all seen Game Changers and those other things on Netflix. Those people are really, really, really driving. They're also driving their own careers, because their performances are improving to such an extent that they're taking over from a lot of the traditional animal-based protein-type diets that these athletes are using. They're also finding, and this is their great advantage, that they have a huge benefit from the plant-based diet in their recovery. They have very quick response to their muscles and all of the inflammation that occurs with extreme sports, for instance. They're back on their feet very, very quickly, while others are still laid up and trying to get better. So this is what your vegan plate looks like. And the idea, and the most important thing that I've learned to get your nutrients into your diet, is to keep adding to your plate. Get as much variety on your plate as possible. It's not about, just take off the meat, just take off the eggs and you eat what's left. What would that be? It would be like a starch and maybe 2 veg and a limp salad. No, we're not doing that. We've got sprouts. We've got an endless supply these days of leafy greens, all sorts of, just keep adding. Go to the supermarket, look for all these beautiful little things that are there. There's fresh vegetables, grains and nuts and seeds. Take them home, try them out, saute them, sprout them, do stuff with them, grind them up, make nut butters. They are fantastic. The energy you'll get from them will really sell you if you do it properly. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be ridiculous. But you must try. And it's to have as much color as you can on a plate. That's the bottom line. And then also just be aware of your fats and oils, but you do have to have fats and oils in a diet. You need that for your energy, and you need it for some of the nutrients, and of course your omega-3s. Your omega-3s are for your brain, your eyes, and get balance between the omega-3 and 6. But all that information is on the internet, and we can also help you with it. The environment is a huge issue right now. And as it says there, Chris Hedges says, becoming vegan is the most important and direct change you can immediately make to save the planet and its species. The other day, what happened soon? The degrees of temperature went up another degree. She came and told me in the morning, and I went, what the heck? What are we going to do? What are people doing? the easiest thing you could do is change your diet. It's simple. You can carry on doing all the other things. Doing your plastic, recycling, all the rest of it. Don't stop doing that. We have to do every single thing we can. But the impact of changing your diet to a vegan diet or plant-based diet is going to be immense. And the exciting thing recently was the United Nations did a big study. And they were looking at future food. How are we going with future food? And according to that study, animal agriculture is the third largest contributor to greenhouse house emissions, more than transport. So thinking about driving around your car, yes, drive less, change your diet. You can reduce an individual's annual carbon footprint by up to 2.1 tons. And also, if you look at water, water is such a scarcity, and we have pollution, and we have all these issues with we haven't even got water. Gosh. So what are we doing? Think of all the industries that are busy. Think of the animal slaughterhouses that wash away all that refuse out the floor. I know when Cape Town was in this drought, all the vegans down there were absolutely going, knowing how much water was being used in the abattoir every day and just being flushed. So those are the facts. Equivalent to 7 years of drinking water for the average person. So shifting things around, if we start to change it, we can look at the crops. So those crops that are being fed all that water, 60% of our water, those crops are being fed to the animals that are then going to feed people. What is that? That water then has been completely almost wasted in a way for the amount of what we're getting from it. And then if we change the production and the consumption, one of the most exciting things that would happen is we would get rid of deforestation. Not entirely, but there'd be a huge impact. Deforestation is driven hugely by cattle farming, where huge areas are cleared or disturbed from their natural vegetation, the indigenous vegetation, and for pasture. In fact, of the arable land in South Africa, 70% is pasture, and that would be obviously determined, and they would be removing everything that wasn't according to what is required for whether it's dairy or beef. And just look at the last one. Switching the world to a plant-based diet would provide enough food for 10 billion people, and it would still free up 70% of the agricultural land for rewilding. Imagine that. Imagine a place where we've got wild places coming back, where the indigenous animals and the biodiversity can recovering and taking over again from where we as human beings have colonized and shifted everything around. As soon as that biodiversity starts happening, we've got a better environment in terms of water. We've got less of pollution going into the water systems. We've got better air. We've got a whole lot of things happening at once. It's about ethics. The value of a sentient life is not measured in its utility to others, but in its immense, irreplaceable value to the being whose life it is. So what is the value of a being? How? Just about all of the use that animals are used for are pleasurable. They are things that we don't actually need. We don't need to eat animals. We don't need to ride on their backs. We don't need to own the certain breed. We don't need to eat them. We don't need to wear them for clothing. We don't need to have wool. We're living in 2023. We have science behind us. We have developments. We have eco-friendly developments. We have a whole lot of choices. Animals are not needed for any reason whatsoever by people. And they are sentient beings. I don't know if you've all heard of what sentience is. Sentience means that you have feelings, you're able to have your own choices, and you feel. You've seen perhaps pictures of animals, and you can live with animals. You can see, you can understand what they're feeling when your dog is sad, when they're happy. So asking those animals, not even asking, demanding, breeding them, taking them, putting them in cages, and then removing their lives, or removing their children from them, taking away their productive rights. Why are we doing that to creatures that feel and very much understand, I'm sure, what we are doing to them? And they just cannot do anything in return to escape or get out of it. And that's why we are vegans. That's because we want to change that. We need to change it. And this occurs in all things. When we look at sentience, it also extends as far, because we don't understand all creatures. So even things like insects and all of those other creatures that we can't really communicate as we do with our dogs, they also have a right to exist. Bees. Bees is a big thing of mine. People are always thinking of honey, and it's fresh and it's natural and we must have more honeybees. No, we don't. Honeybees are plenty in South Africa, and we don't need to have hives. Hives then are made in such a way that honeybees are then destroying habitats for other bees, all the 20-something thousand different species of bees that we have in South Africa, from the smallest to the largest. So here's like a very good argument to look at. Sorry, Sarah. The ethical argument. Premise 1. All agree it is unnecessary to inflict unnecessary pain and suffering and death on animals. Right. 2. Almost all use of animals for food, clothing, vivisection, and entertainment includes the animal suffering or dying. 3. This use is almost always unnecessary. That's the use. Conclusion. It's therefore morally wrong to use animals and their byproducts for food, for clothing, for vivisection, and for amusement. That is our ethical argument we stand by. So how do we do it? If you've now managed to understand and you've got it in your heart and your head that I can't do this anymore, I've got to change this. I don't want to be part of that. I don't want to have violence on my plate. I don't want to be part of that system, that exploitation. I want it out. I want something else. You can start off very simply by replacing the meat, the eggs, and the dairy on your plate, putting those fresh fruit and vegetables, nuts and seeds and grains onto your plate and starting to enjoy the experience. Avoid wearing belts. Avoid looking at, get your little Woolworths jersey and look at the label inside. What percentage of wool is there? And say, no, I don't need that. Let me get this one instead. All of those things. Start reading. You will become a label reader. You will start examining and being very selective about what you're doing. But you're saying every single time you do that and you cast aside one animal byproduct, you are actually making a possibility for that industry to develop more and produce more environmentally friendly and vegan friendly items. Contact us. Contact the Vegan Society. Talk to us. We are here. We are open. Emails. Find a little group in your area. Start it up if you don't have one, and we'll help you sort it out and get started. But we are here to help. That is our mandate, and that's what we love, and that's what we want to do. Encourage others to try and to go vegan. Be strong. People are naturally resistant to what they are being conditioned and told to do. So you will get resistance. I've got some friends who have known me since I've been vegan. They still aren't vegan. They're resisting like crazy. What is it? The butter or what? So know that you will get resistance. Your family might be resistant. Everybody's going to say, what are you doing? Tell them. Tell them and be strong. And if you get weak, come and talk to us again. Just to find some vegans and talk, put in a video, put something on and remind yourself again, why am I doing this? This is why I'm doing it. Okay. Also very important is to learn the facts. There's a lot of TikTok and whatnot out there. Look at it for what it is, but look for evidence-based information. Always check that it's evidence. We don't want to be sharing information that is not factual and that is wrong and that can be disputed. We're always happy to say, yes, you're right, it's such a good thing about veganism, but actually we want to have truth come out. We are very all for truth. So I just want to encourage you all to find in your heart and find in your brains to connect those things and to move forward. It's only when we get rid of the cognitive dissonance, that thing that resists, that doesn't allow us to understand the real reality of this vast industry that's going on around us, and that is everywhere you look. You drive down the street, there's burgers this, there's burgers that. You can smell it in the air. It's pretty shocking. But it's part of who we've been told to be by society and by our parents. So once you've got that, there's a whole other world opening up. When we live consistently with our values, when you start to do it, it's the most lived. It truly is, because you've taken something that is based in violence and you've just gone there. It's and then you will start to find that you will begin to explore further, and you'll start to see that how that same oppression and sort of exploitation works in the world around you. There is also things that connect with our sexuality, whether it's sexism, racism, all sorts of other bigotry and stuff is also related to the speciesism that occurs in the animal industry. And so it happens that you move out further and further, you continually peeling off the layers and seeing it with your own eyes, the exploitation that occurs in the world. What we're doing in the end is we're focusing on removing violence and injustice from our lives. And hopefully that impact is going to move out, and the circle of compassion that we spoke about in the beginning is going to start expanding around us, and it's going to start connecting others of us together and change the way we look at things in the world and how we treat all beings, every single one, whether that is non-human beings or just the animals or anybody else, as well as the environment. I think there's one. So the four aspects that I spoke about, they really are interconnected and work together. And we just got to keep all four of them balanced at all times. And then you can see there what veganism, it's not about losing anything. It's about getting a whole lot. I think that's the last one. Yes. That's it for me. Thank you very much for being here. I'm like teary. I hope your heads and hearts have really felt that.